Okay, so the second property you can use to solve triangles would be law of cosines, and we're going to use that when we have one of these two things going on. We have a side angle side. That angle has to be in between the two sides, or you just have side, 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 and you don't know anything about the angles. So law of cosines is actually the same law, and it just changes the A, B, C variables. What you need to remember is the side that's being solved for out here is going to be the same angle that you're applying the cosine to. So A squared equals B squared plus C squared minus 2 times B, C, and the cosine of A. So let's go ahead. I'm going to make my chart that I have like we did in the law of sines. Angles are still uppercase, sides are still lowercase. So in this case, I know angle C, this side is going to be C, that's B, and that's A. So I know my A is 2, my B is 3. So since I know my angle C and my A and B lengths, I'm going to use this formula right here. So that's going to be C squared equals A squared plus B squared minus 2AB and the cosine of C. So you're going to just plug in the numbers you have. So you've got a 2 squared, 3 squared for B, minus 2 times A times B, 2 times 3, which is 6, and the cosine of 60. So we can simplify all of this. Minus 2 times, that's going to be 6. That's going to be 12 times the cosine of 60, which is something that you're actually going to have memorized here pretty soon. 60, which is 1/2, 0.5. So that's going to equal 4 plus 9 minus 6. So 13 minus 6 is 7. So length C now is 7. Now from this point on, you have now a pair that you can go by. So from this point on, you can actually now use law of sines to solve for your other two angles. You don't have to use law of cosines past this. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot something. Oops, let's go back. This is actually C squared. I'm kind of glad I made that mistake. C squared equals 7, but we need to solve for C, not C squared. So C squared equals 7. In order to find C, I need to take the square root of 7, which is 2.65-ish. 2.65, which makes more sense because that 60 is probably going to be our in-between angle. So now you can use sine of 60 over 2.65 equals, let's do sine of A first, sine of A over 2. So 2 sine 60 divided by 2.65 is going to equal sine of A. And let's figure out what that is. So sine of 60 times 2 divided by 2.65 is about 0.6536. And now you need to do the inverse sine of that. So you're going to go second sine 0.6536. And you get about 40.8. That'll round up to 41 degrees. So our measure of A is going to be 41 degrees. So far we're okay because 2 is smaller than 2.65, 41 is smaller than 60, so far our proportions are doing okay. And then now because you have two angles, you can actually just use the property of all angles in a triangle add up to 180, so that last angle should be 79 degrees. So again, this would be my smallest, my medium, and my large. Okay, let's do the next one. So again, let's label everything. I would do that first just so you don't get confused with things. And I'm going to put my chart over here this time, so I have some room. And I know that my angle B is 91 degrees. Side A is 3. Side B, I don't know. Side C is 2. So go ahead and see if you can figure out which formula you're going to need to use. If you've got the angle but you don't have the side, you're going to use that middle one, the b squared equals a squared plus c squared. So go ahead and calculate that and then check your answer against mine. I'm going to solve the whole triangle out and you should do the same. So I'm going to put my work up here so that you can see where I plugged in the values. Be really careful of the sign here. Your cosine at 91 degrees is actually sitting in the second quadrant, and anything in the second quadrant has a cosine value that's negative. So make sure that this calculation here is correct. The other thing, be sure you take the square root of this total, which will give you your b value. So our b measurement is 3.63. I'm going to go ahead and complete the rest of the triangle, and you can do the same and then check your answers against mine. Alright, so those are the answers I came up with. Angle A is 56, angle B is 91, angle C is 33. We already knew our lengths of 3 and 2, and then we came up with the length of 3.63 for B. So let's check our proportions again. This is still the smallest, A is the medium, and B is the large. Okay, so in some cases you only have side, side, side. So in that case, you still need to take that same formula, but you're going to turn it around a little bit to make it useful to you. So a squared equals b squared plus c squared minus 2bc and the cosine of a. But this is actually what we need right there. So you can do a couple of things. You can change that whole formula around, or you can just plug in what you have and calculate it the way that you have it. Either way. So if I were to take all of this away and say I subtracted b squared and c squared, then I would have a squared minus b squared minus c squared on this side equals negative 2bc cosine a. Then I could divide out the negative 2bc from that side. And I actually kind of like this formula. I think it's easier. You're doing the same math, but it's easier to calculate because it's all where it needs to be. Equals the cosine of a. Okay? If not, you're just plugging the values in here and figuring it out. But it's either moving it around with the numbers or moving it around without the numbers. But. So, in this case, we'll have our a squared. Let's label these. So, a is 4. So I would have 4 squared minus my b squared is 3 minus 6 squared all over negative 2 times b is 3 and c is 6 equals the cosine of a. So then we've got 16 minus 9 minus 36 all over negative 36. No, you cannot cross those 36's out because this is a total here that we need to add up. So I have 16 minus 9 minus 36 is negative 29 divided by negative 36 is 0.8056, and that's the cosine of a. So now I need to figure out the angle of a. So I'm going to do inverse cosine 0.8056, and a value is going to be 36 degrees. Okay, let's make our chart up here. So our a was 4, b is 3, c is 6, and our a value is 36 degrees. Okay, so in theory, b should be smaller than 36 degrees because 3 is smaller than 4. So now you're at the point where you can use law of sines to calculate the rest of your table. Go ahead and do that. Check your answers against mine in a moment. Alright, so then I went down here, now I can use my a pair. So sine 36 over 4 can now be my control pair. So I figured out sine of b first, which was 0.4408. And when I did the inverse sine, I got an angle of 26 degrees. And then when I subtract both my a and b from 180, I get a c angle measure of 118. So if we look again, let's make sure our proportions are right. 26 and 3 are the smallest, 36 and 4 are the medium, and 118 and 6 are the top. The other thing I wanted to show you was that remind you that that is going to be the same proportion for all three of those. So if I were to do sine of 36 divided by 4, I get 0.1469. Sine of 26 divided by 3 is about the same, 0.146. That's a rounding issue, but pretty close. And sine 118 divided by 6, 0.147. So all pretty much in the ballpark. We rounded off our degrees, so that's a rounding issue, but they're all pretty close. So that's it, law of sines and law of cosines.